All right, great. I appreciate everybody for joining into this webinar. My name is Gal Shafir. I'll be leading the beginning of this webinar, and really thank you all for joining. Without further ado, let's start our webinar for today. Really excited for this. Um, so before jumping into the webinar itself, just a quick agenda to align here. The webinar should take up to an hour. We'll start with a quick intro introducing everyone who is going to talk today. Then we will talk about the existing SOC approach that everyone here on the call should be familiar with. We'll talk about some transitioning into the future and how might SOC or security operations centers would look in the future, and we'll get to that. After that, we'll finish with a quick demo and then a word from our partner at Checkpoint, which I'll introduce right away. If you guys have any questions during this presentation, so don't worry, we will have a question and answer Q&A time at the end of the session. So feel free to submit your questions and through the Zoom platform, and we'll make sure to answer them by the end of the session. So the speakers for today are your truly. My name is Gal Shafir. I am the Director of Pre-Sales Engineering in Simplify. We'll have Yoni today, which is our Senior Solution Engineer for the region and for Asia Pacific in general. Really happy to have you, Yoni. And Ron Shalom, excited to have you, a Senior Product Manager from our partners at Checkpoint. We'll carry some things by the end of the presentation. So happy to have you. So our session for today really is concentrating and is built on a really good article that we actually read that was written by Deloitte and Google Chronicle and Google Cloud. This is a really great article that really opened up our mind to see and really think what would the next generation security operations center would look like in the near future. And I really recommend everybody on this call to go ahead and read it after the session. This mostly is referring to the next gen SOC. We're seeing more and more these days, powered by technologies like automation, and new technologies such as SOAR, XDR, and more, and trying to rethink the way security operations are structured these days. And this is really, there's no right or wrong. This is really a thought leadership session because we really like this idea and we have decided to take it one step further and really try to imagine how security operations centers would look like in the near future. So let's start, maybe speaking a little bit about the existing SOC approach, which I'm sure everyone on this call is really familiar with. If you think of a SOC today, most organizations, there's really a status quo on how the structure of a SOC would look like. Let's say there's been a new malware alert in your security operations center generated by your SIM maybe. And in most organizations, the handling flow would be very similar, right? We have tier 0, which is often combined with tier 1. That will run the either automatic or manual enrichment based on the SOC maturity, and we'll make decisions based on the alert. Is it suspicious or is it a false positive? That's usually what those tiers are doing. If the case was found suspicious, they will escalate it to tier 2, and tier 2 will get all the enriched alert and case with all the information, and they will usually extend the investigation, trying to find more indicators and really trying to make more out of it. In most cases, the case will actually be closed in tier 2 after full case remediation. The more common way we see tier 3 involved in this is, in most cases, it's mostly responsible in the threat hunting part of the house. In some cases, overlaying tier 2 if they're packed with work or trying to help them extend the investigation. But usually they'll be trying to fish for ATPs, and things that might have passed the existing security solution. So in this security operation center structure, that is the most common one today, and I'm sure everyone listening would be able to relay. A case will really move from tier to tier. When you think of that, when we get a new case, it will move from tier to tier, changing the owner on the way. So basically, as the case is being escalated, analysts from different tiers throw the responsibility of the case from one to another. The transition of the case from tier one to tier two to tier three, that costs time, even with the automation. And people lose a lot of context because they need to understand the previous comments written by previous analysts and previous teams that they haven't maybe worked with until today. The second problem that we see here is that a case, or as a case is being escalated by analysts up the ladder, it's going from your less experienced people to the more experienced people, right? That would be the structure. And if there's any major event, you put your least experienced people to deal with it first, right? Because tier one will be the first people who will get any type of case, even if it's the most vicious malware or ransomware. Another problem that we're facing here that we will deep dive into just in a second is that we're basically locking our talents. In this case, let's say tier one, tier two, we're locking them in a closed group and surrounding them by people with the same skills. And in this case, analysts have hard time to improve and advance. Because when you think of that, as a tier one analyst, all I work is doing tier one work, and I only work in my tier one team. I really have nowhere to learn from and evolve and advance. And that's a lose for everybody. It's a lose for the analyst, and it's a lose for the SOC manager and the SOC itself. So this traditional structure, which has been really popular even today for so many years, at least for the 90s, I think, by the way, when we started seeing the first NOC or first IT groups, this has served us very well until today. And the question we started asking after seeing this article by Deloitte and Google Chronicle is whether this approach, which was adopted so many years ago, is still relevant today to 2021. When you think of that, the technologies which drive those operational teams, like the NOC, SOC, IT, have changed and evolved so dramatically. Is this really the right structure relevant to where we are at today? So the complications we see in the core and SOC structure, even with some of the new technologies that I mentioned before added to it, is that our tier one analysts are being compartmentalized and left in an endless loop of triaging and following scripts. This disables them from evolving, like I mentioned in the previous slide, and that disables you from improving your SOC, even if they have a lot of potential in many cases. On top of that, source solutions and automation solutions are now being adopted to do most of the triage and having all the analysts work in a centralized workbench. And so sometimes that leaves both SOC managers and the analysts confused about how their day-to-day work would look in the near future alongside those technologies. This tiered approach doesn't promote any collaboration between different teams or departments, such even between the SOC or the IT, or the SOC and the NOC, or SOC and change management team. And that leads to hanging cases and lack of responsibility. Today's analysts don't really worry as much about things they used to chase or spend time on, like alert fatigue and SIM configurations, thanks to all those technologies. And they tend to worry more about their personal advancement and contribution to your organization. So it's very clear that a SOC consists from three main core pillars, right? People, processes, and technologies. So as you've understood from the previous slide, today we'll focus on the technology, on the people part, sorry. And we'll really talk and kind of deep dive into that. So, I mean, different people have different skill sets, different experience, and different goals. And since now the automation is taking care of the most boring stuff like data enrichment, closing false positives, etc., the cases that actually get to the analysts today and needed to be reviewed by them are usually very high quality cases that require the analyst's attention. Most people agree that even with the automation running most of the tier one tasks, analysts are still needed. They are important and rare talent for every organization, and there will never be enough analysts. The question is, where do they fit now alongside the automation? And how would you structure a security operations center that utilizes those new technologies as such? How would we take this good talent and reorganize it so it would fit to handle the new challenges? So the new approach and the concept of the transformation Deloitte and Google Chronicle have been talking about in their article is to make the SOC more oriented to the process or the problem. In a second, we'll see how that would potentially look like. But the idea is the following. Instead of moving the case up the ladder from the least experienced people today called tier one to the more experienced one called tier two or tier three, wasting a lot of time and losing context, why not having one person who is assigned to the same case and is responsible for it as long as the case is open, somewhat like, you know, an account manager, if you will, and taking it through the process it needs to go through until it's solved. While of course involving different people with different skill sets and different teams and departments. So in this case, if a malware alert would be received by the SIM, it would go through the automation, which will close 95% of the false positive, and it will be completely enriched. Then the case assignee, who will be a single person for as long as the case is alive, and we'll see how that looks like in a second, will invite different experts relevant to that particular alert to triage it completely. If it would found as false positive, as you can see this error, they could go back to the automation piece and then improve it so the next time they will receive less noise. If not, more people from the investigation team could be involved, and we'll see how that looks like in just a second. That would actually create a situation where the responsibility isn't thrown from tier to tier, and the collaboration piece brings everything together and brings all the relevant stakeholders together, which makes it very important for them. Junior analysts can now collaborate on the same case as senior analysts and actually learn from the engagement and the ecosystem instead of only working around junior analysts. And that basically makes a single point of contact for every case that will be responsible for this case as long as it's alive. So just before handing it over to the demo, the way that it would actually look like, it's really forming a squad of subject matter experts, as you can see here, which will be formed from different experts relevant for that particular problem. And instead of moving the case between different teams, we will invite different teams for the case so they will concentrate on the problem. Imagine a world where every case that you get that has went through the automation and raised the flag which requires human intervention, all your relevant or most relevant people for that particular case will be invited and involved together. So first of all, they can learn from one another, but second of all, they can concentrate on the problem. And so in this case, we could have one case owner, which in this case could be a junior analyst even, who will invite the relevant EDR expert or SIM expert or even a senior analyst that will take a look at it, but also people from other departments like the NOC or IT. On top of that, what we see as very recommended and beneficial is to have a SOAR engineer overlaying all of that process, so that SOAR engineer can learn what people are doing and then go back to the automation piece to make things faster for them in the next time. So just for a summary, the tierless approach, I think the advantages are very obvious. We have a squad of relevant people that is focused on solving a problem. Each person brings their own expertise, and together they form this entity, which is called a squad, that would solve the problem faster, that would accelerate the triage and containment processes and allow each squad member to learn from their peers' expertise, allowing your talent to evolve faster, learn better, and concentrate more on the problem instead of doing the same thing over and over again, while really advancing and enhancing your operational efficiency in your SOC that you are managing. So that's a win-win for everybody. The considerations that we should take for this is, first of all, this comes out of the assumption that you already have an advanced technology. This approach assumes you have a SOAR platform and automation in place, and that you own the existing SOC talent today. This approach also assumes that you already collaborate between the different teams, like the SOC and the IT and the SOC on the and the NOC, to really get the job done. And it relates to SOC who own the talent. Now, in case of SOC that does not own a talent or an analyst or subject matter experts for all of those matters, a hybrid approach, which includes an MSSP as an outsourcer, could be achieved, which I'll show right now, and then we'll jump to the demo. So the idea in the hybrid approach, and with that, we'll finish this, is that let's say we have a new case that is coming in that we have never seen before, right? Maybe we don't have that subject matter expert in our SOC. Instead of just overlaying the entire tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3 from an MSSP, we can basically invite someone really relevant. So if we have a skills shortage on that particular type of alert, which we just received, which is new to our SOC, we can outsource that specific thing to an MSSP, which allow us to place maybe one full-time employee for every major area that's get covered by the MSSP to learn from them and work with them in the same squad. Once that's achieved, we get our internal staff trained on the things that we just outsourced to the MSSP. We will fulfill the missing skill set by learning all those skills from the MSSP, cover the bigger surface in our SOC for the future, and then repeat, right? So on and so forth. And the next time we'll get a new alert, because alerts will never stop, amaze us. We will outsource that to an MSSP, and that's really how we train our talent internally that we will own, that can help us evolve and improve our SOC. With that, let's just really quickly to a demo done by Yoni Budovsky. Yoni, this is all yours.
Thanks a lot, Gal. Share my screen and we can start. All right. Thanks a lot. And I'm Yoni. I'll be taking you through a short demo of the platform, including this new approach and how is it implemented within our platform. So everything begins when, again, alerts coming into Simplify. And the first thing that we do, we normalize the data in order to make the alert themselves more visual and more kind of clearer, and to simplify the context of those. And you can see that when the analyst logs in and chooses one of the cases, he actually presented to the case overview, where we answer 3 important questions: what happened, when it happened, and who is involved in that specific incident. So those are the alerts that are, in this case, aggregated into one case. And this is thanks to our contextual analysis mechanism that can identify similar context between alerts and group them into one case to create a more threat-centric experience to the investigation. And we'll talk about it in a second. When it happened, for that, we have the timeline, which allows us also to identify patterns in time, like we see here. And the last thing is the who. Those are the entities that were extracted from the raw data of every alert. And that way we can focus the analyst on the important artifacts within every entity, like we see here. So if a phishing email will be structured into something like this, that shows us the attacker, the receiver who received the email and reported it, the content of the email, like URLs, hashes, and attachments. In addition, we have a visual representation of the case. So by clicking on the Explore button, it takes us to the visual representation that shows us a high-level view of the threat rather than just a single alert. So we can see here that several alerts, as mentioned, were grouped in the same case. And we can see that the story that is being told is that an external user sent 3 phishing emails as part of a phishing campaign to my internal users. This is the content of the emails, right? The hashes and URLs. And we can see that Frank here, by clicking on a malicious URL or downloading a malicious file, caused a data exploitation alert, right? Like we see here. In addition, I can investigate from this screen. I can click on different entities to review their kind of enriched information, right? Like we see here, Active Directory, or if I click on the URL, I have information from VirusTotal or from X-Force, from Insights, right? And those are brought by the automation that is applied on every alert. Going back to the case screen, by clicking on one of the alerts, I can see the actual playbook, which is the automation itself that is attached to every alert. Now let's talk about the automation for a second. Usually automation is part of classification of false positives. As Gal mentioned previously, it's kind of automates the repetitive tasks that we are doing, right? In Simplify, we have another thing that we kind of prepare the case for investigation. It means that we're able, first of all, enrich the different entities, right? Like we saw with Active Directory, VirusTotal, all part of the automation. And we create those insights. That the insights are focusing the analyst on the important information he needs to know from every enrichment. For example, we are showing specific fields from Active Directory or results from X-Force or the header analysis block, right? From the header analysis process that we apply. And right, so the next thing is that once I want to, let's say, escalate this case into a more, to the newer approach, which is the tierless and skill-based approach, what I can do is I can actually escalate it to the command center. And let's say I have a ransomware attack in my organization. It costs me $1 million a day. And actually, this is the time to take action and to move it to the next level. So what I can do, I can click on Open in Command Center, which will export some of the information out of this incident into the existing command center. Let's say, oops, sorry. I'll call it like the ransomware incident. I can provide the details here. I can add critical impact. I can extract comments from the original case into the command center incident, including the different attachments that were part of the original case. And by opening the command center, I will actually have a new command center incident for the Simplify incident that I've created. From here, I'll have to fill in the dashboard that will include all the different information or kind of the high-level details about the specific incident. And the next thing that I'll do, I'll start inviting collaborators, right? Now I'll move just to an already created incident where I can see the different squads that are part of this incident with their action items at the moment. And obviously I can add additional collaborators to that list, right? Like from the EDR team, from the SIM team, the SOC team, right? Anyone with a mailbox can be invited into this, into each squad, right? Regardless whether they have a Simplify user or not, right? Those can be actually also external consultants, for example. Once everyone is invited, they can review the case or the incident dashboard and start collaborating within the workstation. Now, it means that every meeting summary, assessment, or evidence can be attached to this workstation. I can scroll between the different departments to review what are their action items. I can create tasks or generate tasks for certain collaborators based on their expertise or role, right? I can create reminders that will be assigned to every incident. And remind me, there is a CEO assessment in a couple days that I need to prepare to, and this will be shared with all the incident collaborators. And one important note is I also have this embedded chat option where I can create and communicate with my colleagues from the same incident. I can create, for example, group chats within the collaborators to share some information. And of course, all then being summarized in the dashboard where the severity level is adjustment of every is adjusted for every incident. And with that, I would like to pass the mic to Rani Shalom from Checkpoint to talk about this concept in an approach. Thanks a lot.
Hi, everyone. Let me just share my screen quickly. Perfect. Good. Okay. So hi, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Rani Shalom, and I'm a senior product manager here at Checkpoint. Checkpoint is in Israel as well. And I'm responsible for an area called Advanced Threat Prevention, which Security Operations Center Solutions, or SecOps, is part of my responsibility. So it was a very interesting approach to what Simplified showed you towards how to modernize your SOC. I wanted to share with you some aspects of, I've been meeting over the past couple of years, actually mainly at least a year ago when we were allowed and were able to travel. Last year was not that, let's say, available for travel, but still I've met with hundreds of security operations centers to learn more about their day-to-day lives, their pain points, challenges, how they see their future and what is missing and how we can help them. And I believe that despite, I've met with small ones with just one or two SOC operators that cannot even fit into the model that was just described. And I've met with some of the largest security operations centers on earth with hundreds of people on a single shift. But it seems like they all share the same pain points, which is amazing in my point of view. Let me start by actually sharing with you a real live incident, something that was actually amazing to see. It happened almost a year ago. Or actually now, I think it's almost a year ago now, almost exactly a year ago. I've met with a bank, European bank, that you see not that big, 5,000 employees, just about 1 billion euros of revenue. And they have a SOC. And like every operation or every company that security is important to them, they invested in building a SOC, but they only had 2 security operation managers working 8 to 5. That's all. That's the only thing that they can afford. And one day, we actually got a call from them. Our incident response team got a call that the bank was brought to its knees. They were attacked by a ransomware outbreak that basically disconnected completely 3 branches and shut down several main and critical systems inside their headquarters. And the bank was basically almost collapsing. So I'm not here to talk about what the incident response team, how they were able to help them and what they did, because they did not know what to do themselves. But what I wanted to share with you is an analysis that we ran. So after we helped them, return all these services that they needed and remove all these issues from all these threats from their organization, we worked with them understanding the anatomy of the attack. What really happened? And we learned something amazing. What we learned is that actually 5 months before the outbreak, what happened, a few people, a few employees of the bank received an email. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was just about 10 employees received an email titled resending my last invoice. One of them actually opened the email and clicked on the attachment without really thinking if that's safe or not. Obviously, what happened, that was a trick bot Trojan that started to infect that employee's PC. And over the course of the next 5 months, TrickBot took hold of more and more devices inside their network. Now, I remind you, they actually have a SOC. So they have 2 people monitoring everything that happens on their network. And still for 5 months, TrickBot took hold of more and more devices quietly in their network until that, where TrickBot was used to deploy the ransomware, and then, the attacker launched their attack. But the question we started to ask, how come for 5 months, no one was able to detect what's happening? I mean, something was happening, right? TrickBot was moving from PC to PC to other systems as well, and no one saw what's happening. There were flags, there were logs. We were able to analyze back everything that happened. So they had the necessary information, and still they missed it. And that was interesting for us to understand what is wrong. And there are several challenges, but I think that the biggest challenge that I saw across so many different cybersecurity operations that I've met with is complexity. Today, there are way too many companies that cover very specific areas. It is becoming a challenge to understand exactly which technology can cover which area. And even more than that, once you deploy multiple vendors, it becomes very challenging to really understand or correlate or even stitch information across the different vendors. That becomes now, at least to my point of view, one of the biggest challenges that security operations centers are facing. So just to kind of give you some more data behind it, and I cannot really go into, as you can see here, there are hundreds and hundreds of different vendors covering so many different areas. All of them are relevant to security, and specifically to security operations centers. But trying to summarize that based on General Petraeus, if you heard about him, he's the former CIA director that met with us at Cyber 2 years ago, actually almost now 3 years ago at CyberTech, and kind of covered the CIA point of view of the cybersecurity landscape. And you can see the changes, how the number of threat actors is growing, how the number of threat types, alerts per day is becoming now a major issue. Gal mentioned that you need tools to automate dealing with so many alerts per day. And as I showed you, the number of security vendors trying to address all these different vectors and actors and all this complexity is growing at an exponential rate. And it's becoming a challenge now to everyone. And the idea that we wanted to bring is that there are way too many different solutions. And those solutions are very difficult to actually put into one single puzzle. They do not cooperate. They don't share intelligence because different solutions may provide different type of logs or cover aspects that are not easily matched with other vendors' solutions. So overall, building one single unified architecture that can simplify the SOC operations is becoming extremely challenging. And what we think here at Checkpoint is that one of the best options, or what we consider to be best practices, is to bring certainty into SOC operations. And the way we see it is by reducing the complexity, using a smaller number of solution vendors that better cooperate. In our case, we partnered with Simplify to bring you more automation, to simplify the processes and the coordination between the different vendors. Checkpoint can cover, and I won't go into that because we don't have time, and I don't think that's the focus of this discussion, but Checkpoint covers the largest number of attack vectors with one single architecture that provides you with unified policy and full visibility across all these vectors. And together with Simplify, we can easily build a SOC with the tools that will provide you with the best detection precision. In our case, it's based on the development of a platform that is actually based on machine learning and artificial intelligence engines that were developed together with 100 of the Fortune 500 companies that we trusted their SOC operations to be very mature and have top talent. And together with them, we developed AI algorithms that provide 99.9% precision of detection of attacks inside and outside the organization. It is also based on our ability to see real-time internet traffic. We process on a daily basis. We process about 10 billion URLs, web pages, files, and about 10 trillion logs coming from all of our sensors across the globe. We also allow you to access our threat intelligence for rapid investigation and a global view of every indicator. You can search in our databases any indicator and get a lot of information about it, not just what you have inside your organization, but what Checkpoint sees around the globe. Is this indicator now part of an existing campaign? Is it targeting your industry? Is it targeting your country? Everything is presented in a real-time view, and also a global view, like I mentioned. And the whole idea, the partnership with Simplify, the whole idea is to provide you with a single system, a single view. Everything is pre-integrated and fully automated. And with this, we believe that can help you significantly increase the efficiency of your security operations center and the ability to detect threats quickly and respond to them in a very short time before it becomes too late. Thank you for your time. Let me switch back to Gal, right?
Yes, thank you.
That's your.
Thank you, Ron. Really appreciate you taking the time joining us. So everybody joining this session, we wanted to thank you. I see that we have some questions from the audience, so I will take them before ending this session. The first question is, Can the platform be delivered as a service? The answer for that is absolutely yes. Simplify can be delivered both as an on-prem or a SaaS, a cloud application hosted by Simplify, which is a cloud native and provided as a service by our company. Second question that I see here is the platform multi-tenant? Also for that, the question is yes. Every piece that you've seen in the demo, including the collaboration, case management, command center, ability to open incidents and involving different people from different departments, including dashboards, reports, playbooks, integrations, every aspect of the platform is fully multi-tenant from the core. And that allows you to create or have data segregation and create different access permissions for different tenants and different users in the platform. So absolutely. Third and last question that I see here is, can reports be generated through the command center? The answer for that is also yes. We haven't showed it today in the demo, but for every incident of the command center that is opened and being dealt by different stakeholders and analysts. And by the way, they don't necessarily have to be from a technical team. You can involve people from different departments like HR, executives, a tax attorney, regulation attorney, right? Whatever it is from different departments can be collaborated. And very easy with one-click report can be excluded or exported from the system just with a click of a button. With that, I would like to. Yes.
Gal, sorry, there are more questions in the Q&A section. Okay. There are a few questions relating to SIMs and integrations to SIMs and enrichments. If you can relate to that, please.
Of course. Yeah. My bad for missing that.
No worries. All good.
Yeah, we have a question. How many SIMs can integrate it? The answer for that is today out of the box, we can integrate to most market standard SIMs. And if you go to our website, you can actually go to the marketplace section and see all of the full list of all integrations that we support. In terms of the platform, we can integrate as many SIM products as you'd like simultaneously. The same Simplify platform can be connected in parallel to many SIM products. For example, Splunk, QRadar, ArcSight, Logarithm, right? All the market standards. And we will normalize all the data coming from all of them together to the same platform where your analysts work. And for them, it's really invisible where it came from. So it's really a matter of sizing, and there is no technical limitation for that. Another question that I see here is, Simplify is a SOAR product. What about the capabilities for a SIM to do enrichment from the SIM end? So we can go back to the SIM. The answer for that is, of course, we can run a playbook whenever we get that. The playbook can go ahead and do all types of enrichment, from threat intelligence to asset management, like Active Directory or any other asset management, vulnerability management, sandbox solutions, ticketing systems, and basically everything that has an API can be used, including the SIM itself. As part of the automation and the playbook, we can go back to the SIM and then extend the investigation for you automatically, querying the SIM about, hey, give me all the events related for that hash from the last 48 hours. And that can be added as evidence to the investigation. Last question here is, any limitation to open source SIM platform? Do we have any limitation to supporting open source SIM platform? The answer is no. We're actually seeing a trend of more people moving to those types of solutions. For example, Elasticsearch being used and utilized as a SIM. This is a trend we're seeing more and more organizations moving towards as a trend in this market. As long as the product has an API, whether if it's an open source or not, we can most likely integrate into that. And this is actually a trend that we're seeing. So a lot of open source products are being integrated, not just SIMs, by the way, but also open source threat intelligence, open source ticketing systems, and open source enrichment sources in general. So, and it looks like all the questions now are answered. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining this call, and invite everybody on this call to go ahead and experience with our community edition. You can see the link on the screen I'm sharing right now. The community edition of Simplify is basically very similar to what you've seen in the demo today. It really includes most of the things. Of course, a bit more limited on the license perspective, but if you want to get your hands on a SOAR platform and experience with it, and build your own playbook and automation, I would definitely recommend you to download the free community edition and get your hands dirty with some technology. I want to thank everybody who joined this call, and wish you a great rest of the day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.